All right, so folks were asking me the other day when I was going to finally put out my official review of Starfield, and I realized I hadn't actually got around to doing it because I've been playing a second character and having fun playing still, even though I'm not doing it a lot these days, maybe once a week. But I put out my final thoughts video, I think like a week and a half ago, and then I put out the video the other day of making my Space Marine to go in and do the things that I didn't do with my original character. I finally got to New Game Plus, got to the other side, and I've slowly been exploring what that means and what that is. And so I feel like I've got a pretty good grip now on the entirety of the game. I'm 300 plus hours in. So this is my official review of Starfield. It's similar to my final thoughts video, but a little bit different because here we're going to be talking more of like the technical side of things and everything else. So without further ado, final review. 300 hours in. Again, like I said in the final thoughts video, it's a good game. It's a Bethesda game. Bethesda doesn't make bad games. Anybody out there who claims that Bethesda makes bad games, you can feel free to dislike this video right now because you're wrong. That's just not true. They have a formula for the way they make games, and it works for them and their audience. And I am one of those people who is their target audience. But it's not a great game. Phantom Liberty, the DLC, Cyberpunk 2.0, that's a great game. Alan Wake 2, that's a great game. Baldur's Gate 3, that's a great game. Starfield is kind of meh. It's good, it's entertaining, but it's like fast food. I like fast food as much as I love all food. I like a McDonald's burger and french fries and milkshake as much as I love a gourmet steak. But it is what it is, and if you recognize that and you can appreciate it for what it is, then I think that it helps because it is one of those things where it's not going to be considered a gourmet experience because it's just not. If we go back 20 years ago, I think roughly that's how long Morrowind was. I don't really actually know off the top of my head, but I feel like it was around that time. Um, looking back at like Morrowind as an example, and maybe even Skyrim and Oblivion to some smaller degree, those were released in times when there was a lot less competition for Bethesda as a company, and the games felt a lot more revolutionary than what they currently feel like. And I think that's because whereas other companies are innovating in a lot of different ways, Bethesda has their formula and they've kind of just stuck with it for better or for worse. And I've seen a lot of people complaining that Bethesda didn't innovate, that they didn't do more, that they just released another formulaic video game. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the thing. They don't have to innovate. They don't have to make this new thing because they have a formula, they have a recipe that works. I think in my final thoughts video, I likened it to a pizza restaurant who has their pizza recipe down and they know this pizza recipe sells, it sells good, people are happy with it. It's the Domino's experience. They're not going to change that on a whim just because a handful of people want them to suddenly start doing gourmet pizzas with pineapple and anchovies and all this other stuff. However, with innovation comes companies out there who are doing things in ways that make Bethesda games look a lot less um, flashy than they used to be, a lot less impressive than they used to be. So when you look at, especially if you're looking at the games that released in 2023 against Starfield, there are cinematic storytelling experiences that make Starfield look a lot less. I would argue that like Baldur's Gate 3 is up there. Cyberpunk's cinematic experience was absolutely amazing with Phantom Liberty and the 2.0 launch. Alan Wake 2 has just it's pretty amazing in terms of a visual masterpiece that blends, you know, actual actors coming in and doing song and dance and all this other stuff with great gameplay. Bethesda is going to have to kind of not necessarily innovate, but they are going to have to consider whether or not what they have to offer is good enough as it is when it comes to the next game that they have, which is probably going to be Elder Scrolls 6. Because Starfield is a good game, but it's not a great game, and that's sort of an issue if they want to continue to be a leader in the industry. Because right now I feel like with the Starfield release, they're not really a leader of the industry anymore. It's a fun game. It's a great game. I really liked the storyline of the idea behind space exploration and that main story. I know it's not for everybody with where it goes with the New Game Plus mode. I don't want to spoil that here. But the way that storyline works, I kind of get it. It makes sense, from a writing perspective. And I think that that is a good storyline. The Constellation storyline is very good. However, I also think that things like the Ryujin faction storyline or the Freestar Rangers storyline, the Sistef storyline, where I had to infiltrate the um, um, Crimson Fleet, that felt to me like a better, funner, more impactful storyline than the Constellation storyline did. And I've been told, and I have not played it yet, I've been told that the UC Vanguard storyline is the best storyline in the game and feels like it could be its own standalone game. And that's one of the reasons why I rolled my secondary character as a Space Marine. He is the full on, I am part of the, like the Starship Trooper, I'm doing my part. I made that character to play through that storyline specifically because I didn't want to do it on my other character who was like the space scoundrel. And as I've gone in and done my second playthrough, like the initial intro to the game, it felt very good to me doing it all over again. Like you start off in the mining facility, you get out, you create your character, you get your first ship, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm ready to go. Like I feel this vast wideness of space out there awaiting me. And again, it's a good game, and it provided me with everything I needed out of it in terms of a genuinely good experience. I'm 300 hours in. I did 275 hours in my first playthrough before I did my final thoughts video, and had a lot of fun. But I don't care about the jank at all. I didn't have any bugs. I played on the Xbox Series X. I think the only bug I saw out of the whole experience was an early mission where you have to take out these bandits these pirates that are coming off of a ship, and at some point the ship takes off, and one of the guys that I was shooting at was still on the landing of the ship, and the ship took off, and I was shooting at him, and he had about half his health left, and then he went up in the sky, the ship disappeared, and he was just left hanging in the sky, and my colors just shifted there for some reason. I'll have to take a look at that on my camera may have reset on the reboot. Anyway, um, that was the only time where I couldn't finish that. I had to reload, but it was I lost 5 minutes of progress. It was not a big deal. Other than that, the typical jank that you're used to in Bethesda games, where the NPCs weren't looking at me a lot of the times, and there was just I saw an NPC spawning out of the air one time, and it's not stuff that for me that doesn't take me out of the experience. I'm just like I just shrug my head, shrug my shoulders and go. It's no different than playing Cyberpunk, which has a great cinematic experience, and even now with 2.0 update, like I was doing the mission on the stream the other day where I crashed into the side of a vehicle with my motorcycle, got punted off my motorcycle, and then I got back up and went to go get my motorcycle, and my motorcycle was literally stuck half in the ground environment and was actually lodged in there, and I couldn't pick the bike back up, so I had to resummon the bike. Jank exists in all games when you do crazy stuff, and so that part of it didn't take me out of it. I don't care that they didn't innovate. Um, it was the recipe that I know and have come to expect from Bethesda over the years, and it provided me with an entertaining 275 now 300 plus hour journey. And I'll probably get another, this Space Marine character. I'm only going to play him through the UC Vanguard storyline, and that's it. Maybe the Vanguard, or excuse me, the Sistef storyline, but I've already done that. I really just want to see the Vanguard storyline, and then I'll probably be done with that character, and I'll shelve him and go back to my New Game Plus character and get into like the outpost building and wait for the DLC. Um, the music is great. The soundtrack is great. I own the premium edition on the Xbox Series X, and I've already talked about the art book and the soundtrack that came with that. That art book, in and of itself, was worth the extra $25 or whatever I paid to get the premium edition. Because it's got so much cool concept art in it, and I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. So being able to flip through that while listening to the soundtrack is really enjoyable, and so I get a lot of enjoyment just from spending a few hours going through all of that stuff and looking at all of the work that went into this. I watched Adam Savage build the hands-on spaceship for the Frontier. I think is what it's called. That was promoted by Bethesda for him to build on his tested YouTube channel. That was amazing. I love watching model making, and I liked that. I've loved the live action trailer that Starfield did. They did a lot of good things with this game, a lot of fun things. And so anytime someone comes and tries to make a claim that, oh, Bethesda needs to burn and everything else, I literally am just like, troll, get thee gone. I'll take your troll tears and use them for my beard care, because that's what they're for. Um, Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. Yes, it has jank. Is it as good as many other games? No. Is it a fun game? Yes, and that's at the end of the day all that you should be worried about. I think Co Carnage said it best. I watched him talk about this a couple of months ago, and he said Starfield is what you want it to be. If you want it to be a fun experience and a fun game, then that's what it's going to be for you. If the only thing you're focused on is the jank and you're looking at the little things that can take you out of the experience, and you're going to call it a hot buggy mess, and you're going to bitch about Bethesda, and you're going to rant and rave about how a horrible experience it was, then that's what it's going to be for you. But no one has to agree with you. You don't have to agree with me that it's a good game. I don't have to agree with you that it's a bad game. Art is subjective. For me, and on my channel, I can tell people that I had a very good time playing it, and I would absolutely recommend this game to people who like Bethesda games. But Bethesda has a lot of work to do for Elder Scrolls 6. The companion system just doesn't feel as modern as other games anymore. The AI is wonky. The constant chatter from the companions is bad. They don't sneak very well. They're constantly interrupt storylines, and it just felt bad. The constant NPCs always turning to like talk to you directly, that's immersion breaking. The constant loading screens. I know a lot of people have talked about this, and I like to poke fun of this because every game has loading screens. It's just different games do them differently and mask them differently, and different games do seamless differently. Bethesda is going to have to get better on their next game about having fewer loading screens or masking them in the way that like a game like Jedi Survivor or God of War does, where your character goes to the side and like shimmies through a tight little space and it's loading what's beyond that. Look to what Cyberpunk 2077 did with their tech in Night City. You could be driving down the street, and at least on the Series X, it's a very sometimes there'll be a slight hitch when you're driving really fast, and you'll see the loading icon for a split second, and it'll kind of freeze frame. Split second, that's all it is, but you can definitely notice it, and that's it. And it's loaded the next sequence, and you're good to go. They're going to have to work on the loading screens. They're going to have to work on the companion systems. They're going to have to work on their AI, the animations. The animations look atrocious for 2023. And excuse me, they're going to have to get better at that, because when you go look at like Alan Wake and Cyberpunk 2077 and Baldur's Gate 3, which are all games that came out in a similar time frame and took a similar amount of time to be developed, Bethesda's Starfield looks bad, and it has nothing to do with the engine itself. This has more to do with just the way that they do animation and facial rigging and everything else. It's just not up to other games' standards, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, but if they want to be considered a leader of the industry like they have been in the past, then they have to produce content that is as the same quality as these other companies who are willing to take risks and do things that Bethesda doesn't seem or didn't seem willing to make this game. Now, they did a lot of impressive tech on the back end with the planets and the procedural generation. I'm going to give them credit for that. The soundtrack, the concept art, the way the look and feel of the game is, the starships, the outpost building, all of the engineering that went into this game is amazing, but it sacrificed some of the visual quality because of that. And I know the frame lock on the Series X in particular, I didn't really complain about it too much. It didn't really impact my gameplay for the most part, except in combat scenarios. It sucks being locked to 30 frames a second when you're doing fast-paced shooter combat. It sucks. Like, it feels absolute like dog crap to have 30 frames a second. Outside of combat, I never noticed the frames at all. It never took me out of the game. But every single time I got in a fast-paced scenario where I'm shooting, we've got like 10 guys on the screen and you're trying to duck and run for cover and all this other stuff. I would go play Cyberpunk and have that running at 60 frames a second and be like, "Oh my God, this is night and day." Like this is just a completely different experience in terms of the run and gun. So, they're going to have to do better. So, at the end of the day, I would give this game a 7 out of 10. I can't go higher than that. The dialogue was clunky in a lot of places, even though the storylines were good. I like the storylines, but the writing was clunky. The voice acting sometimes was good, sometimes was not. The facial animations on the characters is just not up to other 2023 standards. The music is great. The engineering is impressive. Space looks amazing. I love the planet exploration. I love the space exploration. I will never get tired of the animation sequences for landing and taking off on my ship and the grab jumps and everything else. I know a lot of people are like, oh, loading screens. I don't have a problem with loading screens. The fact that I was able to take my own screenshots and have those be the loading screens on planets was really cool. They do need to do fewer loading screens, but I don't mind the ones they had, and I don't mind the animation sequences. That was all good to me. Um, the crafting system is super in depth. The skill system is super in depth. The RPG aspects of this game are impressive, but it suffers from 20-year-old game design decisions that are kind of holding it back. It's their Domino's recipe that they've used for years, and it works and it sells lots of copies, but it's just not as good as all these other games that are coming out and have come out in the same time. So Bethesda, you got to do better for Elder Scrolls 6. Otherwise, you're going to get completely squashed in the review categories with your next one. So hopefully you can take the constructive criticism that people are giving you about the things you need to improve. A good game. I had a lot of fun with Starfield. I recommend this game to everybody. I don't think it's a bad game. I think everyone should play this. But it's not a great game. And it could have been a great game. And that's the thing that kind of makes me shake my head and go, maybe next time. Anyway, folks, love to hear your thoughts. Drop them down below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stick around. We're doing lots of other stuff. Don't forget, we're doing multi-streaming now. It's really cool. Over on Twitch as well. There's a Discord. There's lots of member videos if you want to get involved with everything that's going here on the channel. And we'll see you in the next one, everybody. Stay safe.